Compensation getting even hotter. And this, of course, in a document leaked from the Mbeki Foundation, former President Thabo Mbeki weighing in. Let's just outline what he's saying, that the ANC has abandoned its historical value of non-racialism by framing the debate in racial terms as black versus white. Mbeki says the land question is important, but so is the national question, which is about uniting South Africans across racial and class divides. He says the posture of some leaders mirrors the position of the EFF. So listen to that criticism of his party. ANC veteran Pallo Jordan and others have hit back. Jordan telling radio station 702 the ANC is not approaching the land question the way Mbeki is suggesting, and that white South Africans are not being discriminated against. Let's get the view of political analyst Professor Lesiba Teffo live for us from our studio in Pretoria. Professor, is Thabo Mbeki getting involved like setting the cat amongst the pigeons?
Well, yes, maybe he let the cat among the pigeons. But of interest to me is whether what Mbeki says is different from what President Ramaphosa says. Is whether what former President Mbeki is saying doesn't resonate with a sizable chunk of the national executive members of the African National Congress. Let's not pretend that they are at idem. They are united on the position. I think there is a sentiment that says, and I think that's what the president is advocating, Ramaphosa, namely that, yes, the land question must be addressed with the necessary circumspection. And indeed, it must be undergirded by the values and the principles that have guided the liberation movement over the years. There is no question, as far as I'm concerned, that the rhetoric that comes from some of the leaders of the African National Congress is polarizing and divisive. It's almost white versus black. And I'm speaking for myself, sitting where I am, that even the anti-racist uses racist categories to denounce and to renounce racism. And at the end of the day, who's a racist and who's not racist? I think the bottom line is we all are for land redress, but with the necessary circumspection, lest we repeat the mistakes made by others, including our neighbors across the Limpopo.
So you basically agree with Thabo Mbeki, and what he's suggesting in his very erudite manner is that the ANC is not thinking for itself right now. It's being led by the nose by the EFF.
They have surrendered that to some extent. They have. I mean, to the EFF's credit, I think in the last 6 months, they have led the ANC. And indeed, they were panicking at one stage. And had Ramaphosa not won, I wonder where they would be. At least there is a sense of hope. There is a sense of optimism. And indeed, the prospects look good that they can get 50% plus one. But undoubtedly, prior to Nasrec, there was a sense that they might end up in a coalition government. So I am saying, yes, reclaim the space, lead as you should as the ruling party, but guided by the philosophy that held you together over the years. There is no doubt that the necessary adjustments, amendments, where necessary, they should be made. But let us not polarize society. Let us not be opportunistic and be expedient. Let us not be led by what the EFF for the day seems to want. Because I have no doubt, if the EFF were to move into parliament, if the EFF were to assume the mantle of power tomorrow, they would certainly not address the land question in the manner they are advocating right now. It's just opportunism, it's just expediency. They find the ANC fairly pliable, and they've taken advantage of that.
Professor, if we look at the other argument, though, is it possible to talk about land without talking about black and white only because those apartheid policies were so skewed towards white ownership? So surely you have to mention race just because it's there.
Well, you see, I'm averse to that, and I refuse to participate in any discussion or discourse that would polarize society more than it already is. Look, there's nobody who disputes the fact that the land question must be addressed. It's the how part of doing it. I'm arguing that even the anti-racist end up being racist because he uses racial categories in explaining and renouncing racism. And I'm saying to myself, isn't the question, the way it's framed, similar to the way the National Party would frame its mind and the legislation, that this will be for white and this will be for blacks? They may be not using the strong language in the manner I'm doing right now, but a discernible listener, reader and writer will tell you they are bordering on similarities. They are almost getting similar in terms of how they frame the question and in terms of the objectives or the intended objectives. Yes, let's address the land question, but undoubtedly, let's agree. Let's not paralyze the society further.
Professor, what planet is Pallo Jordan on there? He says there's no discrimination at all here. We're not talking about treating white South Africans any differently to anybody else.
I agree with that sentiment, right? But look, the sizable chunk of the average thinker is that it is white against black. And the Pallo Jordans must come out to say it's not against that. It's against addressing the question. And they must not out of expediency come out to say it's not against white or it's against black. The way the question is framed, the way it's coming across, and I think even the EFF is fairly strong in this regard. It's about black and white. Take from the white and give to the black. That's number one. And I'm saying there's plenty of land that is owned by the state. There is plenty of land that is owned by absentee laws. There's plenty of land owned by farmers who don't use it that is lying fallow. Let's start there. When we have exhausted those, then we can at least go for what people call is white land or land in the hands of the whites. And let's stop talking about land stolen. It doesn't help us if you consider what the founding fathers of South Africa were about: nation building, reconciliation, and social cohesion.
So finally, do you think the ANC would do well to heed Mbeki's warning? He's clearly concerned about populism. It's not only this, he's talking about the independence of the Reserve Bank. He's concerned about populism.
Let me be hung if needs be, but I have no doubt that the ANC, what is going to resolve ultimately is not what the EFF has or Pallo Jordan has. I think they will be more circumspect and they will consider the founding values. And I've listened carefully and I read here and there, and what came from the documents, I think spearheaded by Jeremy Cronin, that people might be a bit disappointed, but I will be one of those who will be celebrating. Let's address the national question. That's about unity. Let's address the land question. Let's redress the imbalances of yesteryear. But let's take color out of it. Those who are deserving, let them get it. But let's not forget, and this is a critical point, the Constitution allows expropriation without compensation if it's in the public interest. In the 25 years where such was addressed, the land is lying fallow, and the beneficiary is in the main where the political connected. And I'm sure the President Ramaphosa is aware of that, and if his closest advisors are aware of that, and they wouldn't like to fall into that shameful trap once more.
All right, Professor Lesiba Teffo, thank you very much. Agreeing with former President Thabo Mbeki that the ANC maybe is shifting away from a history of non-racialism. Bongani?